6 gangsters stepped out of the shadows on a quiet back street and closed in on Jackie Chan, fists clenched, blades glinting under a single flickering streetlight. Jackie's hands came up, not in surrender, but in a stance the men didn't recognize until it was far too late. What happened in the next 90 seconds would become street legend, a story whispered about for decades. Jackie Chan's fist connected with the first man's jaw before anyone on that narrow Hong Kong side street even understood what was happening. The guy dropped sideways into a stack of wooden crates, and the sound cracked through the alley so loud it froze every other body in place for exactly one heartbeat. What happened in the next 4 minutes would become Hong Kong legend, a story whispered about for decades in backroom tea houses and film studio lots across Asia. But let me take you there properly, because the version you've heard, if you've heard anything at all, is probably wrong. It was 1976. Jackie Chan was nobody. Let me say that again so it sits right. He was nobody. Not the Jackie Chan you picture now, not the guy doing backflips off skyscrapers, not the international megastar with 100 movies and a billion-dollar smile. He was 22 years old, broke, sleeping on a cot in the back of a stunt coordinator's apartment, eating one real meal a day when he could afford it. He'd been in a handful of small films where he played background muscle, the guy who gets kicked through a door so the real star can look good. He was bruised constantly, underpaid always, and walking home alone that night through a district in Kowloon that smart people avoided after 10 p.m. Believe me, this matters, because what Jackie did on that street makes no sense unless you understand that he had absolutely nothing to lose. No fame to protect, no bodyguards on speed dial, no insurance policy. Just a young man who'd been trained since age 7 at the Peking Opera School, where the training wasn't training, it was daily survival. They hit you for real there. They bent your body past its limits, and if you cried, they hit you again. By the time Jackie walked out of that school at 17, he could take a beating that would hospitalize a normal human being, and he could deliver one twice as fast. So here he was, walking, hands in his jacket pockets, head down because it had started to mist, that fine Hong Kong rain that gets into your bones. The street was one of those old Kowloon corridors, barely wide enough for a car, lined with shuttered shop fronts. Metal roll-down gates on every storefront, all closed. No pedestrians. A single flickering streetlight at the far end casting everything in a yellowish wash that made the wet pavement look almost golden. He heard them before he saw them. Footsteps, not one set, multiple, coming from behind and getting faster. Jackie's shoulders tightened. He didn't turn around yet. He just shifted his weight slightly, moved his hands out of his pockets and kept walking. But his pace changed. Shorter steps, balanced. His feet went from casual to planted, and if you'd been watching from above, you'd have seen his whole center of gravity drop about 2 inches. Here's what nobody tells you about Jackie Chan. Everyone talks about his acrobatics, his comedy, his stunts. Nobody talks about the fact that this man could actually fight. Not movie fight. Fight. He trained in Hapkido under the same Korean master who trained Bruce Lee's on-screen opponents. He knew northern and southern style kung fu. He'd spent his teenage years doing live stage combat where one mistake meant a broken bone. And by 22, he'd been in enough real scraps on the streets of Hong Kong to know exactly what multiple footsteps behind you in a dark alley meant. He turned a corner, and there they were. 4 men standing in a loose semicircle blocking the street ahead. They weren't hiding, they were waiting. Leather jackets, 2 of them, one in a white undershirt with his sleeves rolled. The 4th, the biggest one, wearing what looked like a dark work shirt, arms crossed, standing dead center. Jackie stopped. His jaw tightened. He glanced over his shoulder. 3 more, coming up behind him, closing the gap. 7 total. Now get this. 7 against 1 on a dead-end side street in Kowloon at night. Any sane person's brain starts calculating exit routes, doorways, fire escapes, gaps between buildings. Jackie's eyes moved fast, scanning everything, but the metal gates were all down. The walls on either side were solid, and the 7 men were positioned in a way that said they'd done this before. The big one in front, the one with crossed arms, uncrossed them and took a step forward. He had a scar running from his left ear down to his chin, the kind you get from a broken bottle, not a knife. He pointed at Jackie. "You work for Lo Wei." It wasn't a question. Jackie shifted his stance, angling his body sideways to reduce his target profile. Classic, instinctive. I work for whoever pays me. Lo Wei owes money, a lot of money. The scarred man took another step. You're going to help us collect. Here's the context. I'll make it quick because we've got a fight to get to. Lo Wei was a film director in Hong Kong, a guy who directed Bruce Lee in a couple of pictures and rode that reputation for years afterward. He was also a man who made deals with people you don't make deals with and then failed to keep them. Triad-connected money men, underground financiers, the kind of people who didn't send lawyers when you missed a payment. They sent guys with scars and leather jackets to dark alleys. Jackie was under contract to Lo Wei at the time. A terrible contract. Paid almost nothing, gave him no creative control, and essentially made him Lo Wei's property for several more films. But to the men on this street, Jackie wasn't a struggling stuntman. He was leverage. The scarred man spoke again. You come with us. We have a conversation with your boss. Nobody gets hurt. Jackie didn't respond with words. He took one step backward, and his right foot found the curb edge, giving him a slight elevation advantage. His hands came up, open-palmed, fingers slightly curled. Not fists, open hands. That's how you knew Jackie was serious. Fists were for movies. Open hands were for the real thing. Faster to block, faster to grab, faster to redirect. I'm not going anywhere with you, Jackie said. I swear this happened. What followed has been recounted by Jackie himself in interviews, by his childhood opera school brother Yuan Biao, and by at least two people who claim they watched from a window above the street. The details vary, the way details always do when a moment becomes a legend, but the core of it stays the same every single time. The scarred man nodded to someone behind Jackie. That was the signal. The first attacker came from behind. Fast. Jackie heard the shoe scrape on wet concrete, pivoted hard to his left, and the guy's grab missed his collar by an inch. Jackie's right hand snapped forward, palm-heel strike, caught the man square in the sternum. The man folded. That was the crack of the crates I told you about at the start, because the man stumbled backward into a stack of produce boxes and brought the whole pile down. Everything happened at once after that. Two of them rushed from the front. Jackie grabbed the collar of the first attacker, the one still doubled over, and shoved him into the path of the incoming pair. Bodies collided. One tripped, the other sidestepped, threw a wide right hook. Jackie ducked under it, came up on the inside, and delivered a short elbow to the man's ribs. You could hear the impact. The man gasped, grabbed his side, and Jackie was already past him, moving, always moving, because the worst thing you can do against multiple opponents is stand still. Now, here's where Jackie did something that separated him from every other martial artist on the planet. He used the environment. A metal shop gate was to his right. He jumped, planted one foot on the gate's horizontal crossbar about 3 feet up, pushed off, and launched himself over the head of the next attacker. The man swung at empty air. Jackie landed behind him, grabbed the back of his jacket, and used the man's own momentum to run him face first into the wall. 5 seconds, maybe 6. 3 men down, 2 more staggering, and Jackie was breathing hard but still moving, still repositioning, putting obstacles between himself and the remaining attackers. He kicked a crate into the path of one. He grabbed a metal stool that was chained to a shuttered noodle shop and used it to block a punch so hard the man's knuckles split against the steel frame. But 7 is a lot. Trust me on that. 7 is a lot when they're grown men, when they're angry, and when at least 2 of them know what they're doing. The scarred man hadn't moved. He'd been watching, studying, and now he stepped forward, calm, deliberate, and pulled something from behind his back. A collapsible baton. Metal. About 18 inches when extended. He flicked his wrist and the thing snapped open with that distinctive telescoping click that sounds small but means something very big has just changed. Jackie saw it. His eyes tracked the weapon. He picked up the metal stool again and held it in front of him. "You're fast," the scarred man said. His tone hadn't changed. That was the scary part. He'd just watched Jackie dismantle 4 of his guys and his voice was still flat, conversational. "I'll give you that, but you're still coming with us." Jackie adjusted his grip on the stool. The 2 men still standing from the original 7 flanked wide, 1 on each side. The 3 that Jackie had dropped were getting back up. One of them was spitting blood. Another was holding his ribs. They were hurt, but they were angry now, and angry men don't calculate risk properly. The scarred man swung the baton in a lazy arc, testing. Jackie blocked it with the stool. Metal rang against metal. The vibration ran up Jackie's arms. The man swung again harder, aiming for the legs. Jackie jumped backward, and now his back was almost against the wall, running out of room. For real, though. This is where most stories would end badly. Cornered, outmanned, one guy with a weapon, the rest regrouping. Jackie's breathing was ragged now. His knuckles were scraped raw from the wall and the crate wood. His right forearm had a red welt rising where he'd blocked a punch. And the mist had become actual rain, making the concrete slick under his shoes. But Jackie Chan had something that none of these men had accounted for, something that no amount of muscle or metal could match. He'd spent 10 years of his childhood being beaten, starved, and pushed past every conceivable limit of pain and fear at the Peking Opera School. Master Yu Jim Yuen would strike students who couldn't hold a handstand for 30 minutes. Punishments included being hung upside down from ceiling beams. Jackie once broke his nose during a live performance and was told to finish the show before he could see a doctor. He finished the show, then did the next one. By the time he left that school, his pain threshold was so far beyond normal that what was happening in this alley, this was a Tuesday. He stopped retreating, his shoulders dropped, his jaw unclenched. And he did something that made the scarred man hesitate for the first time. He put down the stool, just set it on the ground, stepped over it, and stood in the open. No weapon, no guard, hands at his sides, looking directly at the scarred man. "Hit me," Jackie said. The scarred man paused. His grip shifted on the baton. "Go ahead, hit me, then I'll show you something." Here's the thing you have to understand. Jackie wasn't being suicidal. He was being tactical. Because the moment you hold a weapon and your opponent puts down theirs, the entire dynamic reverses. Now everyone's watching the weapon. Now the man with the baton is the aggressor, and the guy with empty hands is the underdog. And in a narrow street where windows lined the upper floors, where people were surely watching, where police could arrive at any moment, being the clear aggressor with a weapon was suddenly a very different calculation. The scarred man's eyes flicked upward, just for a fraction of a second, toward the windows. He'd thought the same thing. Jackie caught it, and he moved. Not toward the scarred man, toward the wall. 3 steps and he was running up it, literally running up the vertical surface. 2 steps, 3 steps, his hands caught the bottom rung of a fire escape ladder that none of the men had noticed because it was painted the same color as the building and retracted up high. His body weight pulled it down. The ladder slid with a grinding screech, and Jackie was climbing, fast, 1 rung, 2, 3, pulling himself up with the upper body strength of a man who'd done handstands for half his childhood. The scarred man lunged. The baton swung and caught Jackie's left ankle. Pain shot through his leg, sharp and electric. Jackie's grip faltered. His left hand slipped off the wet metal. For one horrifying second, he dangled by one arm, his body swinging, his legs kicking, the men below grabbing at his feet. One of them caught his right shoe, pulled, the shoe came off. Jackie kicked with his bare foot, connected with someone's face, heard a grunt, and hauled himself up another rung, then another. His arms were burning. His ankle was throbbing. Rain was running into his eyes. He reached the first landing, a metal platform barely wider than his shoulders. He rolled onto it and lay there for 2 seconds, gasping, staring up at the dark sky, feeling the rain on his face. Below him, chaos. The men were arguing. One of them tried the ladder, but the scarred man pulled him back. They were shouting at each other in Cantonese, the words sharp and overlapping. Jackie caught fragments. "Not worth it. Lo Wei's problem, not ours. The kid's insane." And right here, something happened that Jackie has talked about in exactly 1 interview, decades later, and even then, only briefly. The scarred man looked up at Jackie on the fire escape. Their eyes met. And the man's expression wasn't angry. It wasn't frustrated. It was something closer to recognition. Something almost like respect. "You're going to be somebody," the scarred man called up. No heat in his voice. No threat. He said it the way you'd say something you genuinely believed, something that surprised you into honesty. Jackie didn't respond. He was holding his ankle, checking whether it was broken or just badly bruised. The swelling was already starting. He could flex his toes, which meant no fracture, probably. The scarred man collapsed his baton, slid it behind his back, and turned to his men. "Let's go." Just like that. "Let's go." One of them, the one with the split knuckles, started to argue. The scarred man grabbed him by the shoulder, said something low and fast that Jackie couldn't hear, and the man stopped talking. They collected themselves, the bloody mouth, the bruised ribs, the general humiliation of 7 men getting worked over by a 22-year-old stuntman, and they walked back the way they'd come. Their footsteps faded. The alley went quiet. Just rain. You know what's wild? Jackie sat on that fire escape for almost 20 minutes before climbing down. Not because he was scared they'd come back, because his hands were shaking so badly he didn't trust his grip on the wet ladder. Adrenaline dump. The body's way of telling you that what you just did was absolutely insane and please never do it again. He climbed down barefoot, one shoe lost in the fight. He found the other shoe near the crates, put it on, and walked the rest of the way home limping, soaking wet, one shoe on, one shoe off, his knuckles bleeding, his ankle swollen to twice its normal size. He told the stunt coordinator he'd slipped on wet stairs. The stunt coordinator didn't believe him, but didn't ask more questions, because in Hong Kong's film industry in the 70s, questions about bruises often led to answers nobody wanted to hear. Now, let me tell you why this matters, why this isn't just a street fight story. Mark this moment. Because this is the night that shaped everything that came after. Jackie showed up to the Lo-Wei film set the next morning, limping, and did a full day of stunt work. He didn't complain. He didn't tell anyone what happened. But something in him had shifted, and the people around him noticed it. He moved differently. Not physically, his body was actually slower because of the ankle. But his decisions were faster. He improvised a stunt sequence that day using a ladder, a chair, and a set of window shutters that wasn't in the script. The cameraman kept rolling because nobody could believe what they were seeing. A bruised, limping kid creating magic out of furniture. That footage never made it into the final film. Lo-Wei cut it because it made the lead actor look boring by comparison. But people on set saw it. Word spread, and in Hong Kong's tiny film community, word traveled at the speed of jealousy, which is faster than light. Within 2 years, Jackie was directing his own fight choreography. Within 4 years, he'd broken free of Lo-Wei's contract after a series of disputes that got genuinely dangerous, with Lo-Wei allegedly pulling a gun on him during one confrontation. Stay with me. Within 6 years, Jackie Chan was the biggest movie star in Asia. Within 15, he was one of the most famous human beings on the planet. And here's the part that ties it all together, the part that makes this a legend and not just a fight. That fire escape sequence. That moment where Jackie ran up the wall, grabbed the ladder, swung with his legs kicking. Go watch Police Story. Go watch Project A. Go watch Rumble in the Bronx. Go watch literally any Jackie Chan film from his golden era. What do you see? A man who uses the environment as his weapon. Walls, ladders, chairs, tables, market stalls, double-decker buses. That wasn't a technique he learned in a dojo. That was survival instinct forged on a rainy street in Kowloon at 22 years old, when 7 men cornered him and the only way out was up. Every other martial arts star fought in open space. Bruce Lee in a clearing. Jet Li on a mountaintop. Wide, beautiful arenas for wide, beautiful techniques. Jackie fought in cluttered rooms, narrow hallways, construction sites, shopping malls. He fought the way he fought that night. Surrounded, outgunned, using everything within arm's reach and making it look like the most natural thing in the world. You want to know where the comedy came from, too? Right here. That moment where the shoe came off, where he dangled by one arm like a man about to fall. That's not graceful. That's not heroic in the traditional sense. That's messy and desperate and a little bit ridiculous. And Jackie realized that the desperate, ridiculous truth of a real fight was funnier and more exciting than any choreographed sequence could ever be. He built his entire career on that realization. If you've made it this far, you need to subscribe. Seriously, because these are the stories that don't make it into the official biographies. The ones that explain why legends become legends. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Now let me take you forward in time. Because this story has a coda that nobody expects. 1995. Almost 20 years later. Jackie Chan was at the peak of his powers. Rumble in the Bronx was about to open worldwide. He was in Hong Kong for a press event, surrounded by handlers, assistants, and the constant low hum of fame. An older man approached him at a restaurant. Security started to move, but Jackie raised a hand and they stopped. Jackie was looking at the man's face, specifically at a scar running from his left ear to his chin, The man was heavier now. His hair had gone gray. He walked with a slight stoop, but his eyes were the same, flat, observant, missing nothing. They looked at each other for a long moment. "You were right," Jackie said. The man didn't pretend to misunderstand. He didn't play confused. He just nodded, once, slowly. "You earned it," the man said. They didn't shake hands. They didn't exchange numbers. The man turned and walked away, and Jackie watched him go, and the security team exchanged confused glances because they had never seen Jackie Chan stare at a stranger's back with that particular expression, which was something between gratitude and defiance, and the bone-deep weariness of a man remembering who he used to be. And this is the part Jackie doesn't tell. The reason he sat on that fire escape for 20 minutes wasn't just the adrenaline shakes, it was because he was making a decision. Sitting up there, soaking wet, one shoe gone, knuckles raw, he was staring down at that empty alley and deciding who he was going to become. He could have gone to the police. He could have quit working for Lo Wei and found safer employment. He could have left Hong Kong entirely. Some people did. Some people took the smart exit when the triads showed interest in their lives. Nobody would have blamed him. He was 22. He had options. Instead, he showed up to work the next morning and invented a stunt sequence using a ladder. That's the moment. That's the decisive turn. Not the fight, not the fire escape, the morning after. The choice to walk back into the same world that had just tried to swallow him and say, "I'm still here, and I'm going to make something out of this." You want to know the real difference between people who become legends and people who have legendary moments? Legends go back. They return to the place that almost broke them and build something there. Jackie didn't run from the danger of Hong Kong's film industry. He climbed deeper into it. He took the chaos, the violence, the desperation, the improvisation, all of it, and turned it into an art form that entertained billions of people. Now, I want you to hold something in your mind. Picture that alley. The rain, the flickering street light, the 7 men closing in. And in the middle, a 22-year-old kid with nothing, no money, no fame, no guarantee that tomorrow would be any different from today. And then picture that same person, 3 decades later, standing at the Oscars receiving an honorary Academy Award, tears running down his face as an entire auditorium of the most famous people in entertainment stands and applauds. His hands were shaking that night too, just like on the fire escape. But this time it was different. The whole room knew his name. And somewhere in Hong Kong, in a neighborhood that had been rebuilt and modernized beyond recognition, there was a side street where a fire escape ladder hung a little lower than it should have, pulled down years ago by the weight of a young man who refused to go quietly. The ladder was eventually replaced. The buildings changed owners. The noodle shop closed and became a cell phone store. Nothing on that street remembers what happened, but the story does. It made it here, to this moment, to you hearing it right now. And honestly, that's how legends work. The place forgets. The bricks don't care. But the story finds its way out, through whispered conversations and late-night interviews, and the way Jackie Chan, even now in his late 60s, still glances at fire escapes when he walks through narrow streets. Old habits. The body remembers what the mind tries to file away. So what really happened that night? 7 men surrounded Jackie Chan on a quiet street in Kowloon. They wanted to use him as a pawn in someone else's debt. They brought numbers, muscle, and a metal baton to make their point. Jackie brought 10 years of opera school survival training, a body that treated pain as background noise, and an absolute refusal to be used as a tool by anyone. He fought. He bled. He climbed. He escaped. And then he did the hardest thing of all. He woke up the next morning and chose to keep going, not away from the danger, but directly into the heart of it, with a camera rolling and the whole world eventually watching. That's not just a fight story. That's the origin story of one of the greatest entertainers who ever lived. You know what Jackie said years later when someone asked him about fear? Whether he ever felt it during his insane stunts, the falls, the jumps, the hits that sent him to the hospital over and over? He said 7 words. Quiet. Simple. Final. I already survived the worst night. He never explained which night he meant. He didn't have to. Some stories explain themselves. This one just did. That quiet street in Kowloon. That rain. that fire escape, that one bare foot kicking in the dark. That was the night Jackie Chan stopped being a stuntman and started being a legend. Not because he won a fight against 7 men. He didn't win it. He survived it. And survival, when you choose to build something from it instead of running from it, that's where legends begin. Every time you watch Jackie Chan grab a chair and spin it into a weapon, every time you see him vault over a balcony, or slide down a building, or turn a shopping cart into a battering ram, you're watching a man repeat the lesson he learned on the worst night of his life. Use what's around you. Keep moving. Never stop. And when the only way out is up, go up. That's the story. That's the legend. That's Jackie Chan. And that, right there, is why a kid with one shoe and bloody knuckles became the most beloved action star the world has ever seen. The street forgot. The legend didn't.